Hi guys, it's Mrs. Oatley here. Today we're doing 9-3 and it's compare and order integers and absolute value, okay? So we talked about integers and I don't think we have talked about absolute value this year. So let's go ahead and get started. Integers. Integers are a set of whole numbers and their opposites and zero. When ordering and comparing numbers, we want to know which number has the greater value. If I'm going to put something in order and compare it, I need to know which one has more or less value so I know where to put it in comparison to something. And when working with integers, this means the number farthest to the right on a number line. Okay, so we'll look at this right here. So let's make a number line. So here I have a number line. And you can go ahead and pause it, but I put 0 in the middle and I just went 1 to 8 on the positive side and 1 to 8 on the negative side. Now I don't need to put little plus signs here to show that they're positive. Remember from the last lesson that we did, we just want to go by the rule of thumb that unless it has a negative sign, then we're just going to assume that it's positive. Okay, so go ahead and pause your video if you haven't done so and get that up to pace. Okay, so here we have our number line. Okay, now this says when working with integers, the number farthest right on the number line. Okay, so I want you to notice 0 to 8. The farther we go right, the greater the value. Okay, and that's not just with positive numbers, that's on the entire number line. The farther right we go, we get bigger and bigger and bigger. If I'm at 2, 3 is bigger, 4 is bigger, 5 is bigger than 4, 6 is bigger than 5, 7 is bigger than 6, and 8 is bigger than 7. But that's also the case over here, okay? Even though the actual number is, it looks like, when you look at it, it looks like the farther right you go, the smaller it's getting, right? But that's not the case because it has that negative sign, okay? So if you're $3 in the hole and you go to the right, then you would be $2 in the hole. And if you ask yourself, would you rather be in debt $3 or $2? Well, I'd rather be in debt $2, right? Would you rather owe your mom $5 or would you rather owe her $4? Right, because $4 is a less number, but $5 is a bigger amount to be in the hole. Okay, so the closer you get to 0, the bigger the number is going to be. Or the farther left on the entire number, the farther right on the entire number line, the greater the value. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some practicing to make sure that we know how to do this, okay? So I want you to go ahead and write down these numbers here. So I have 9, positive 9 is greater than positive 7. So we're gonna do some greater than and less than. 9 is bigger than 7. And just a quick review when doing greater than and less than, whatever the answer is, whether it's greater than or less than, the sign, the little point on the sign always points to the number that is the smallest, okay? Less than, okay, always points to the number that's the smallest. And it always points to the left as well. I kind of told my class that, less than to the left. But this is 9 is greater than 7, okay? Positive 5 is greater than negative 3. Would you rather have $5 or negative $3? Right, you'd rather have 5, so 5 is greater than 3. Negative 7 and positive 7, which one is greater? Would you rather owe your mom $7 or would you rather have her owe you $7? Right, so you point it to the smaller number. And negative 5 and negative 8. Well, negative 8 is less than negative 5. negative 5 is bigger because it is, on our number line here, negative 5 is closer to 0. Would you rather be $5 in the hole or $8 in the hole? Well, I'd rather only be $5 in the hole because that's less money than being I would rather be $5 in the hole than $8 in the hole, okay? And remember, 5 is closer to 0 than negative 8, okay? Because 8 is technically more dollars in the hole. That's what I was trying to say. But I didn't want to use that analogy. But let's go ahead and try some over here. And you can try these ones on your own. So go ahead and write 2 is what to 11? Well, what do you think? You're right, 2 is definitely less than 11. Negative 6 and 5? Yeah. Negative 6 is less than 5. 1 and negative 9? Well, negative 9 is less than 1. And negative 3 and 0. Well, 0 is actually bigger than 3, right? Negative 3 is less than 0. Okay, so I always find the number that is the smallest, and I just point my less than sign to that number. Okay, now down here on the next section, I want you to write, let me pull this up a little, make sure everyone can see it. We are going to order the following numbers here from least to greatest. Let me fix my paper. Okay, so I want you to write 8, 3, 0, and negative 2. Okay, 8, 3, 0. Sorry, my paper. There we go. 8, 3, 0, and negative 2. Well, we're ordering it from least to greatest. So which number out of these numbers here is the smallest? If you need to look at your number line up here, which one is the smallest? Well, negative 3 is the smallest, and then negative 2, and then 0, and then 8. So we've gone from least to greatest. Would you rather be $3 in the hole, $2 in the hole, $0, or $8? Okay, so the smallest to the greatest. And the more you are in the hole, the smaller amount it becomes. Okay, let's look at the next one. We have negative 9, negative 1, and negative 6. Well, I'm going to find the biggest number, obviously, which is 9, and it's bigger to be in the hole 9 than 6. So I'm going to put negative 9. Then the next biggest number in the hole would be 6. And then my remaining number is going to be 1. Okay, that is from smallest to biggest. Okay, let's go ahead and turn to the back side. On the back, we are going to be going over that vocabulary word, absolute value. Okay, so it says absolute value is the distance a number is from 0. So for example, I'll explain some of this. The symbol for absolute value, the absolute value symbol are these two little lines. I just put an X in the middle to be a variable, but the symbol for absolute value are kind of these lines here, the sides of a square. Okay, absolute value measures the distance. The distance on absolute value between two numbers can never be negative. Absolute value is always a positive number. We just said it can never be negative. And opposite integers always have the same value. So you're probably thinking, what does that mean exactly? Well, let's see. Here we go. Write the absolute value of each number. Well, it says the symbol for absolute value are these sides of a square here. Okay, so look inside this absolute value mark here, and whatever number is inside it, that's going to be the absolute value of the number. So what's the absolute value of 5? Well, it's just 5. What's the absolute value of 2? It's just 2. Because it's set up here, an absolute value is what's inside. An absolute value is the measure of a distance. The distance between the numbers can never be negative. It always has to be positive, okay? So it's just 2. It's just whatever the number is inside the lines. So what is the absolute value of -1? It's just 1. What's the absolute value of -5? It's 5. What's the absolute value of 2? It's 2. And what's the absolute value of 0? It's 0. Okay? Now we are going to use absolute value to do equalities. Greater than and less than. So it says compare the following numbers. Well, I've got the absolute value of 3. Excuse me, I've got the absolute value of -3, but I know that the absolute value of -3 is just plain old 3. Is what to the absolute value of -2? Well, the absolute value of -2 is just 2. So what goes in this box here? 3 is what to 2? Well, 3 is greater than 2. Okay, let's try this one. We've got the absolute value of -4. I just rewrite them there on the bottom. Is what to the absolute value of 4? Well, that's just 4. And, oh, well, it's not greater than, it's not less than, but it's going to be equal to. So remember, an absolute value is whatever that number is inside those lines. It has to be positive and it can't be negative. Okay? Now, going on to the bottom here, it says reading and writing absolute value opposites. We did a few of these opposite questions yesterday. So this little sign here, this means the opposite. Okay? So this question is asking, here's Q for question, what is the opposite of the absolute value of 2? Oops, I almost put a parenthesis. So the question is, what is the opposite of the absolute value of 2? Well, what is the absolute value of 2? Well, it's just 2. But what is the opposite of 2? Well, the opposite of 2 is -2. Okay, let's try one that has a negative sign. This one is the opposite of absolute value -5. So let's write, oops, I didn't have that up all the way. Let's go ahead and write that. What is the opposite? Remember this over here on the side, that means opposite. What is the opposite of the, here's our lines here, the absolute of, ooh, and it's not just 5, it's -5. Okay, so this means what is the opposite of the absolute value of -5? Well, the absolute value, let's do the absolute value first. Well, the absolute value of -5 is just plain 5, because remember, it always has to be positive. It can't be negative. But then it's asking us, what is the opposite of 5? And the opposite of 5 is -5. Okay? Perfect. Go ahead and turn the page. Here is our last page, just a couple questions. These are real world problems, okay? So this one says, a thermometer shows a temperature of -10 degrees Fahrenheit. A nearby thermometer shows a temperature of -12 degrees Fahrenheit. Which temperature is higher? -10 degrees Fahrenheit, although it is a smaller digit than 12, it is closer to 0, okay? So it is the higher temperature because it is closer, to 0, okay? A monthly bank statement shows an account balance to be -$40. What is the size of debt in dollars? If you have a negative account balance of $40, what is your debt? Yeah, you're in the whole 40, right? So you have a $40 debt. You're -40, right? In a game played by 5 friends, points can be added to a score or points can be taken away. The table to the right shows the points earned by each player halfway through the game. The game will end when one player has reached 50 points. So here is the scoreboard. So we have player A is -15, player B is 30, player C is at 0, player D is at 15, and player E is at 35. So let's go ahead and look at the questions. We'll use our data table here. And it says, the score of which 2 players are opposite integers? Well, -15 and 15 are opposite, so that would be players A and D. Which player needs to earn the least number of points to win? Well, you have to have 50 points to win. So which player here is closer to 50? Yeah, player B. And how many points does player B need to win? Well, they're at 30, so they need 20 points, and then they'll be at 50 and they can win. Which player needs to earn the most number of points to win the game? Well, that's going to be the player that's the farthest in the hole, right? Because they're already 35 in the hole, so they need to earn 35 more to be at 0, and then another 50. So that would be player E, and he's got to earn 35 more to be at 0, and then another 50. So he needs to earn about 85 points to win. Write the scores in order from least to greatest. I'm going to go ahead and give you a minute to do that on your own, and then I will see if you got it right. Okay, from least to greatest, the farthest in the hole to the biggest. Okay, here we go. You should have -35, -15, and then 0, and then 15, and then 30. Okay, hopefully that made sense and you were able to learn about integers and about absolute value and about traveling on a number line, okay? If you have any questions, go ahead and email your teacher and they will do their best to answer. I know it's not the same as being at school where you can ask your teacher right away. So thank you for being patient. We're checking our emails and doing the best we can at getting back to you. Okay, see you guys next time. Bye-bye.